1 month before the wedding banquet, Paul got himself a new girlfriend. The news was deliberately passed to me by a mutual friend under the guise of concern. They were betting on whether I would make a scene with Paul. After all, I was the fiancée his family had officially chosen. But my family was on the brink of bankruptcy. I called Paul. He didn't answer, only sent back a voice message. "Jessica, stop bothering me. To be honest, there's more than one child in our family. Why don't you go look for the other one? Or what, are you really so obsessed with me?" His tone was playful, as if he were certain I couldn't let him go. After all, I really had turned back to him again and again before. But this time, I was exhausted. And for the first time, I truly took Paul's words to heart. So I turned around and went to meet the other person he had mentioned. Chapter 1. The video of Paul interacting with his new girlfriend was deliberately sent to me by someone. The video was very short, only 30 seconds. It clearly captured the girl's face. She was pretty and adorable. A well-defined hand was holding a piece of fruit, feeding it to her lips. In the background, the girl laughed non-stop, teasing playfully, sighing about how lucky she was. Lucky to have met such a generous and handsome boyfriend. Until the last 2 or 3 seconds of the video, the camera angle shifted. Under dim lighting, half of Paul's profile was revealed, subtle and restrained. His expression was blank, yet his movements were gentle and attentive, just like the way he used to treat me. I stared at the video for a long time, zooming in again and again, and I arrived at the conclusion I least wanted to accept. The video wasn't fake. Paul really had a girlfriend. 1 month before our wedding banquet, I had known Paul for a long time. When my feelings first stirred, he was in his reckless youth, arrogant, radiant, full of confidence. The elders in our family used to joke that I would fall for him for life. Paul liked to tease me too, asking whether I had truly fallen for him. If I had, he said he could consider whether he should marry me someday. Childhood friends, growing up together, sharing countless experiences. Falling in love wasn't difficult. Our relationship grew closer and closer. My father and Paul's father were close friends despite their age difference. And more than once they casually spoke of arranging our marriage. Everyone in our social circle knew about us. Yet the depth of our feelings was never equal. Paul was good-looking, and he always paid extra attention to pretty girls, enjoying making them happy. Sometimes, his behavior with other women came close to crossing a line. When I found out, I was upset. I couldn't understand why he treated me this way. Why he treated our relationship like that. Paul would smile, pull me into his arms, stroke my hair, and soothe me softly. That's all fake, just for show. I don't even touch their hands. Everyone in our circle is like this. I only look. My heart is with you, Jessica. Only you will be the woman I marry properly in the future. Chapter 2. Many people around him were the same. More entanglements before marriage, then settling down afterward. Gradually, I began to believe it. I also believed that in Paul's heart, I was different from everyone else, unique and irreplaceable. Because every time I was unhappy, as long as I made a fuss, Paul would spend a period of time reporting his whereabouts punctually every single day, just to reassure me, even though, after a while, everything would repeat itself again. Once, I truly felt exhausted and ignored him for half a month. Paul panicked. He waited in front of my house for an entire day and night, insisting on seeing me. I refused. He swore to me. When I stepped onto the balcony, I saw him pacing, making countless phone calls. Gift boxes piled up at my door. Transfers kept flowing into my account. Finally, on my phone, he sent me a message saying that on an auspicious date 6 months later, we would hold our wedding banquet. Paul wanted me to see his blazing sincerity, his firm resolve. I laughed softly and agreed. I thought, if my family's finances hadn't collapsed, if my father hadn't suffered a sudden heart attack and passed away, perhaps Paul and I really would have become, as he said, a celebrated couple in the heat of that summer 6 months later. Chapter 3. Everything happened suddenly. Within just a few months, my family's business, which had already been declining, collapsed completely. Paul's family offered some assistance, but it couldn't stop the fall of a crumbling structure. My family had once only been slightly behind Paul's. Now, The gap had widened drastically. I never had any particularly close friends. People in our circle were mostly the same, similar backgrounds, gathering together according to our elders' arrangements, just for fun. But once circumstances changed, everything changed. Topics of conversation shifted. So did the places we went, the things we ate and drank. Compared to before, it became harder and harder to truly connect. When I used to visit Paul's home, I wouldn't say everything went smoothly, but I felt at ease, unrestrained. After my family fell from grace, I didn't know when it started, but my words and behavior in Paul's house became cautious and restrained. Perhaps it was not long after my father passed away. I walked into Paul's home one day, and unfortunately ran into his family discussing when they would come to formally call off the engagement. Paul's grandfather flew into a rage, angrily scolding them for such disloyal and dishonorable behavior. The younger generation had no choice but to placate him. The marriage would proceed as planned, but once hearts change, they cannot be restored. Paul's father began pressuring him to get married as soon as possible, to ensure the old man could hold a great-grandchild before his life ran out. No consideration was given to the fact that we were only in our 20s. Only a few years out of college. Paul's friends spoke up for him. "You're only in your 20s. Are you really going to get married, have kids, and see your whole life laid out already? Her family's fallen. What are you afraid of? Jessica won't dare be unhappy. She'll be the one trying to please you. To her, you're the last lifeline. Take this chance to meet more girls. Once you marry Jessica, your body and soul won't be free anymore. You know how much she likes to control you." Paul's phone filled with messages like these, along with forwarded business cards and invitations to social gatherings. He didn't reply, but he didn't delete them either. He simply left them there. Chapter 4. Once I took his phone and saw those messages, it would be a lie to say I wasn't hurt. After all, just a few months earlier, the man who swore he would marry me was also him. I confronted him with the messages in my hand. I didn't even have time to cry. My tone was sharp, my suspicion ugly. "Why didn't you delete them? You already saw them. Why didn't you delete them? What are you keeping them for? At the very least, I shouldn't have had to see them." He knew perfectly well how suffocating it would feel for me. I thought Paul had simply forgotten. I thought he would panic and explain himself. But nothing happened. For the first time, he only frowned and glanced at me, but I didn't reply. They were sent randomly by others. Is it wrong that I honestly left the messages there for you to see? His gaze was unfamiliar, confused, as if I were being unreasonable and domineering. I found him unfamiliar as well. We sat facing each other in silence. After a long while, Paul finally spoke. I thought he was going to apologize, but he didn't. He only said lightly, "Jessica, I told you, didn't I? Everyone around me is like this." I stared at him in disbelief. His expression was calm as he asked, "All right, I've explained it. You're not angry anymore, right? Let's go eat." That brief sentence made me lose all desire to speak to him again. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and left. I waited in a corner outside for a long time. Paul didn't chase after me like he used to. When I got home, the huge villa was empty. Since the company neared bankruptcy, many of our fixed assets had been liquidated to barely keep operations afloat. Only this house remained. There were already few servants. The others had been dismissed. The nanny who had taken care of me for years was originally meant to stay on, but her granddaughter had just been born, and she voluntarily resigned. In the end, only the driver remained, driving my mother. My mother ran herself ragged, entangled in debts. She never asked me to study or improve myself. She only coldly told me to hold on tightly to Paul. Holding on to Paul's family would guarantee me a good life, and I had to please them so they would invest in our projects. But stepping into Paul's home now felt like walking on thorns. Paul had also stopped paying much attention to me lately. With the wedding approaching, he seemed to relax instead, ready to enjoy this fleeting moment of bachelor freedom. Chapter 5. Before I saw that video, Paul and I had already argued several times. Sometimes it was because he went out with other people, which left me heartbroken and led to more fights. Sometimes I tried to salvage things. He responded to softness, not force. Whenever I made a fuss, he would go cold, silent, expressionless, until the two of us faced each other in a frozen standoff. And he asked me, "Jessica, are you done yet?" When I cried, he would sigh, take a tissue, and wipe my tears. "Of course I like you," he said, "but Jessica, can you give me some freedom? Then don't interact with them, just stay with me. Isn't that enough?" "No, we'll have plenty of time together in the future, the rest of our lives. In fact, why are you in such a hurry to fight for the present?" "Jessica," he added softly, "are you really that unable to bear seeing me with other people?" Paul curved his lips slightly. A shallow, careless smile, those beautiful, affectionate peach blossom eyes looked straight at me. His hand gently brushed my cheek. His tone was tender. His words were cruel. Suddenly, I felt utterly exhausted. I pushed myself up and fled in a mix of anger and sorrow. Paul didn't follow. He only called after me gently, telling me to walk slower and not fall. Even so, there were no follow-up messages afterward. He didn't think he'd done anything wrong. In his eyes, this was nothing more than a trivial matter. The only one who wavered was me, whether because I couldn't let go of our long-standing bond, or because of my mother's demands. So I lowered my head and went back to him. Then I got angry again over similar trivialities. We argued. Then, inexplicably, I lowered my head again. After several rounds of this, he grew tired of the routine. He stopped replying to messages, stopped answering calls. Only hours later did he finally text, "Jessica, the engagement remains as planned. Before the wedding, don't interfere in any of this. After we're married, I'll make it up to you. And I'll devote myself to you completely." Chapter 6. Deep down, I knew it. There were people betting on whether I would really let go. The Paul family was at the height of their power now. The gap between our families had become too wide. Before long, I might be forgotten entirely, cast aside, never mentioned again. After living such a comfortable life, could I really bear to give it up? Gossip from outsiders was one thing. My mother, however, drilled it into me relentlessly. She said that if you encountered a good match, you shouldn't give it up so easily. My father was gone, but our family still needed a pillar to lean on. I asked my mother, what if I became our family's pillar? She didn't look at me. She only gave her conclusion, "You're not cut out for that. Your value is best realized through marriage. Your younger brother is the one suited to." Only after the words left her mouth did she realize what she had said. She looked up at me quickly. "Jessica, I didn't mean it that way. I thought of how my parents let my brother enter the company while he was still in college, yet constantly stopped me from touching any company matters. They called it consideration, said I couldn't endure hardship, that I should just enjoy life. Yet they often controlled the spending on my bank cards. So I went to intern at other companies. As soon as my father found out, he used his connections to have me fired during internships or trial periods. My mother scolded me angrily, saying, "Our family has a company. Why would you go out and work like that? Don't you feel ashamed?" Caught in the middle, Paul somehow noticed. Once, he took the opportunity to give me a supplementary credit card. He said he wanted to secure me in advance, so he might as well give the bride price early and let me spend freely. His reasoning was full of holes. We were only juniors in college back then. At the time, I was deeply grateful, but being young and unwilling to lose face in front of the person I liked, I rarely used it. Instead, I kept cutting down my own expenses. I also took on side jobs, teaching IELTS classes, working as an overseas study agent for students from other cities. Small things like that wouldn't attract my family's attention. Chapter 7. The entire day that video spread through mutual friends, Paul and I did not exchange a single message. My silent suspicion and the liveliness around him did not interfere with each other. Until the next day, when Paul once again had jewelry delivered to me. The gemstones sparkled brilliantly. Unfortunately, I had no heart to appreciate them. I stayed fixated on that message, scrolling through news about him. Paul had a secret girlfriend, someone other than me. That girl happily shared the meals they ate together and the places they went. In her private social circle, She wrote a long post, documenting how they met and how they grew closer. She never mentioned Paul's name. Every clue was deliberately vague, revealed just enough, and no more. She knew the rules well. At the end of the post, there was a single sentence: "If breaking up is an inevitable ending, then I will still be grateful for the moment we once shared together." Everything was forwarded to me exactly as it was. I read it without saying a word. These things, I knew them now. Paul's family would know. My mother would know too. I called him. The line rang, then switched to voicemail. I called again, and again. The phone repeated the same message over and over. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." From initial disbelief, with countless questions filling my mind, as time dragged on, I reached the point where I didn't want to say anything anymore. Didn't want to ask anything anymore, for no clear reason. I suddenly felt overwhelmingly tired. Chapter 8. From beginning to end. No one answered the phone. I stared at the piece of jewelry he had sent. Only a wall lamp was on in the room. In the dim light, the gemstones still burned with brilliant fire. Was it meant to hold me back, or to tell me to stay quiet? I couldn't tell anymore, and eventually decided it was neither. After a long while, my phone chimed once. I opened it. Paul had sent me a voice message. I tapped play. His voice came through. "Jessica, are you really going to bother me even now? To be honest, the Paul family doesn't have just one son. Why don't you go find another one? Or are you really so desperate for me?" As he said this, Paul's tone was unusually lazy, as if he were certain I could never let him go. As if the future were firmly in his grasp, and nothing would ever change. It had always been like this. I swallowed it before. So what difference did it make now? After all, once we were married, he would stay with me. That counted as sincerity, didn't it? That must be how Paul saw it. Hadn't he once sworn, word by word, that he would show me his true feelings? Yet before the time even came, everything changed again and again. Every behavior had its excuse. So many that my ears grew numb from hearing them. I listened to the message over and over, until my heart became as cool and still as autumn water. Enough. I didn't want anything anymore, because he was my first love. I had taken too many things seriously. Only after peeling away all those thin veils of pretense, did I finally realize, Paul, just like when I first met him, was never truly right for me. It might be better to cancel the engagement, move to an unfamiliar city, and live alone, working quietly. I had thought this before. That night, I finally said it out loud. The first response I received was my mother's hand, slapping hard across my face. She cried as she accused me of being selfish. My father had just passed away. And yet at such a moment, I insisted on creating trouble for her. After all the years my parents had raised me, for me to walk away so easily, and abandon everything, was unforgivable. Chapter 9. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I went alone to Paul's house. Everything there was still familiar, yet I no longer walked in with my back straight, and ease in every step, as I once had. Instead, I followed the butler properly, quietly, into the house. No one from the Paul family was home. The butler asked me to wait a moment, while he went to fetch someone. I had come intending to discuss changing the engagement, but at this point, I found myself hesitating, unsure how to begin. It seemed I had come at the wrong time. I politely declined, stood up, and decided to leave and come back another day. Just as I reached the courtyard gate, a voice called out, "Jessica, are you here to see Paul?" I turned around, following the sound. I saw a figure seated in a wheelchair. It was Oliver, Paul's older brother, the very man I wanted to replace him with. His features were gentle, his complexion pale. Oliver sat in the wheelchair, a blanket covering everything below his knees. His legs had been crippled in his youth, during a kidnapping, the first time I had found him by accident. He hadn't cried or made a scene. He had only looked at me, and smiled bitterly. "Jessica, my life is over." After the incident, Oliver had seen countless doctors, In the end, they all reached the same cruel conclusion. His legs were truly beyond saving. From that moment on, Oliver shut himself away. His temperament grew strange. He refused to sit in a wheelchair, choosing instead to sit in a chair all day, always covering his lower body with a blanket. I felt guilty, hating myself for not finding him sooner. Maybe then, everything would have been different. I couldn't bear to see someone who had once been so gifted and proud fall into such self-destruction, so I came every day to talk with him, to keep him company, to help pass the time. I hoped that through my presence, I could persuade him to hold on to life. It was also during that time that I grew much closer to the free-spirited, unruly Paul. Chapter 10. Paul was completely different from Oliver and from me. He had never liked studying, spending his days indulging in pleasure instead. All the second-generation rich kids were his friends. Paul came every day to pester Oliver, claiming that bringing people around would give him hope. It was so noisy that Oliver could barely have any peace. I, on the other hand, got angry every day, arguing with Paul and driving him out. At first, the two of us were like sworn enemies, as if the world could only tolerate the existence of one of us. But later, there was one occasion, at a banquet. Paul stood in front of me protectively, and without hesitation, he splashed a full glass of wine over a guest who mocked Oliver's disabled legs, right in public. That was the first time I realized that he, too, had a gentle heart. Later on, Paul adopted a kitten whose hind leg had been brutally injured. He said he wanted to completely heal the kitten's scars, so that Oliver could also have some hope when facing the future. Because of that kitten, Paul and I gradually grew closer, until one day, without knowing when it began, I realized that someone had taken up residence in my heart. Nervous and uneasy, I confessed everything to Oliver. Oliver shook his head, his brows gentle as he smiled. Jessica, that's a good thing. Liking someone is never wrong. Paul is physically whole and has an outgoing personality. If you can stay here and watch him, then one day, he paused briefly, then continued, even if we become family in the end, I would already be deeply grateful. Overjoyed, I hugged him and thanked him again and again. Not long after, just a few months later, Oliver went abroad for further studies, taking the kitten with him. Later, he stayed there, handling the Paul family's overseas business. After that, I could only see him during the new year, or when the old master of the Paul family celebrated his birthday. Chapter 11. It had been a long time since the new year passed. I hadn't expected to see Oliver here again. At this time of year, he was usually still on the other side of the Eastern Hemisphere. I couldn't help but ask, "You're actually at home at this time?" He slowly pushed his wheelchair toward me. I sat down on a chair in the courtyard outside. Meeting his gaze at eye level, Oliver stopped beside me and smiled lightly. "You're still so considerate of me. Over there? It's gotten increasingly boring lately, so I came back early." "What, are you unhappy to see me?" I shook my head repeatedly. Of course I was happy to see him. Normally, when I called Oliver, he never answered, only replied with messages saying he was busy. Even during the new year, I could only see him a few times. Meeting him now, I should have felt a spark of joy, if only my heart weren't so heavy. Still, I shouldn't burden Oliver with these matters. Just as I was about to change the subject, Oliver beat me to it and asked, "Are you unhappy because of Paul's girlfriend?" I looked at him in surprise. His eyes were calm, simply stating the facts. "We all know already. The news has been suppressed and completely deleted. This is something he did wrong. You just stay here and wait for him to come home. Grandfather and I will deal with him together." I gave a bitter smile and shook my head. I wanted to say the real reason I came, but couldn't bring myself to say it outright. My thoughts shifted into something else. No, I'm not here to scold him. I actually want to cancel the engagement. At that, Oliver's brows knitted together sharply. Ding! My phone rang. I picked it up. The caller ID showed a name, Paul. The moment I answered, his voice came through, short and heavy. "I heard you came home, Jessica. It's just 1 month. Do you really have to make trouble too?" I pressed my lips together and replied, Paul, I'm not here to make trouble. I came to, whether it was to change the engagement or cancel it. The words hadn't even finished forming in my mind when the phone was snatched away. I turned my head. I hadn't expected Oliver to act so suddenly, in front of me, without caring that Paul on the other end hadn't even heard clearly. Oliver hung up the call. Jessica, are you certain you want to cancel the engagement? This is a serious matter. It's not something to be taken lightly. Chapter 12. Oliver sat there, his hand gripping my phone tightly. His originally pale complexion had flushed with color from anxiety. Warm sunlight spilled outside, a single ray slipping through the doorway. All of a sudden, I felt as though I had returned to the past. Back then, Paul and I were still sworn enemies. Oliver would sit just like this, quietly watching the two of us argue. Whenever he saw that I was truly upset, he would wheel himself over and gently soothe me. You know what Paul is like. Why take him so seriously and get genuinely angry because of him? I would anxiously argue back. But Paul makes you do things you don't want to do. At that moment, his expression would suddenly lose its calmness. Emotion surfacing, just like it was now, in the blink of an eye. So many years had passed. Back then, I never imagined that things would develop this way, nor did I expect that Oliver would stop me from canceling the engagement, even though my true intention had never been that. Oliver carefully explained to me the reasons I shouldn't cancel the engagement, the Paul family's investments in our family, the old master's deep regard for this marriage alliance, one point after another, until I was left speechless. Yet at the very end, Oliver added, if you truly don't want to marry him anymore, Jessica, marry me. I looked up in shock. I met his gaze. Those eyes fixed on me. I couldn't decipher the emotions within them. Oliver handed my phone back to me. I heard him say, marry me first, in a couple of years. If you want to leave, we can divorce then. Canceling the engagement now wouldn't be good for you. For a moment, I couldn't say a word. I didn't want to deceive Oliver. I had come here precisely to marry him, but with him treating me this well, I felt so guilty that I didn't dare reveal the truth. How could I accept Oliver's kindness so naturally, so unapologetically? I took a deep breath, wanting to refuse him. Brother, thank you for your kindness, but you shouldn't sacrifice your chance at happiness just to help me. I would rather remain entangled with Paul than drag Oliver into this messy, chaotic relationship of ours. But Jessica, he said, there doesn't seem to be anyone else besides you. That single sentence cut through all my thoughts and every hesitation. Chapter 13. My heart jumped violently, and I looked at Oliver in confusion. He hadn't finished speaking yet. Seeing my gaze, Oliver paused for a moment, then continued, it's nothing, since that's something that would only happen in the future. Let's set it aside for now. Right now, we should face this together, just like how you used to treat me as an older brother. Since I am your brother, I shouldn't remain indifferent when it comes to your affairs. He was 2 years older than me. In the past, the elders had always told us to address each other as siblings. I waved my hand, explaining that those were things of the past and couldn't be taken seriously now. His gaze was earnest, his attitude firm. Just treat this as a collaboration. To people in our circle, I'm nothing more than a cripple with disabled legs now, but I want to return and develop here. I need an opportunity. He comforted me, telling me to see it simply as cooperation. I would marry into his family, and they would invest in my family's projects. And by marrying me, he would gain a new opportunity to return here and restart his career. Oliver explained it plainly. My heart loosened. At least it was for that made it easier to accept. If it were out of genuine affection, I wouldn't have dared. Once we had roughly settled the matter, I realized the sky had darkened without my noticing. I didn't let Oliver see me off, and intended to leave on my own. Just as I reached the gate, a sudden heavy rain began to fall. I hid under the eaves. His house was halfway up the mountain. Getting a taxi was extremely inconvenient. I was regretting whether I should go back inside to borrow an umbrella when I saw headlights cutting through the rain. Looking closer. It was a green Ferrari, Paul's car. Instinctively, I tucked myself behind the pillar beside the gate. From here, no one would notice me at a glance. I lowered my head and picked up my phone. On the screen were several missed calls, and a few messages, all from Paul. Just as I was about to open them, footsteps sounded nearby, followed by Paul's voice. "Uncle Sue, help me park the car." Panicking, I turned off my phone screen. I didn't want to run into Paul here. For many reasons. Fortunately, if I stepped back into the corner, it would become a blind spot. It was dark here. Paul wouldn't notice me. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, a strange girl's voice sounded through the rain. "Paul, is this your house? It's so big." Chapter 14. "Yes. Of course. Don't wander around, stay close to me," Paul replied to her. I couldn't help but lean out slightly to look. Just in time, I caught a fleeting glimpse of their profiles. That girl, she was the same one from the video. I froze for a moment. Had Paul already brought her here? Then in his eyes, our engagement probably meant even less than before. The promise we once made, to stay together forever, was drifting farther away with each passing day. After they walked a bit farther away, I took a deep breath, stood up, and brushed the dust off my clothes. I stayed in the corner by the gate, planning to leave once the rain eased. My phone showed that the heavy rain would turn light. In 20 minutes, unexpectedly, another car pulled in under the eaves, stopping right in front of me. The rear door opened. There was no one inside, only Oliver's driver, holding the door open. "It's raining outside. The young master instructed me to take you home." I didn't refuse. I got into the car. Inside, everything was quiet and steady. Oliver's driver sent me home safely. The villa was brightly lit. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw my mother standing by the floor-to-ceiling window. She didn't look at me, only gazed outside and asked, "Whose car was that? Why didn't Paul bring you back?" I answered honestly about the car's owner. As for the latter half, I only said that Paul wasn't home. She nodded and sat back down on the sofa. My mother gently shook her head, remarking that it was rare that Oliver would be home at this time. I didn't continue the conversation. I turned and went back to my room. After cleaning up and washing, I finally noticed that my phone had filled with notifications. Chapter 15. I opened them. Paul's messages were pinned at the top. I tapped in and saw several messages I hadn't read earlier. "Why did you hang up on me? Can you respect my thoughts too? There's definitely a place for you in my heart. But can you loosen your grip sometimes and give me some room to breathe? You pressing me step by step like this is exhausting for me too." I stared at the screen, stunned. How had we ended up like this? Scrolling back through our chat history from months ago, everything felt vividly present. I also saw that message that had once filled me with joy. I consulted a master. "There's an extremely auspicious date 6 months from now. That day, we'll hold the wedding banquet. Jessica, I love you." The auspicious date was almost here. Yet the closer it got, the clearer it became. He had always been, from the very beginning, someone who didn't fit with me. Maybe I never should have crossed paths with him at all. Scrolling back to the present, there was another message from Paul. Sent 10 minutes ago. "You're home? It was pouring outside just now. Why didn't you wait for me to take you back? Do you really have to make things this ugly? Refusing to see me? Would you rather get soaked in the rain? Fine, you've got backbone. A 2-seater sports car. Could it carry 3 people?" I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked him. I didn't want any more tug-of-war between us. It was time to end. Chapter 16. I exited that chat window. Below it was Oliver. He asked, "Did you get wet getting in and out of the car just now?" I didn't get wet. Thank you for having the driver take me. And thank you for your concern. After sending that, I felt it sounded a bit distant, and was thinking about adding something else. Before I could, he replied first. As it should be, I didn't even need to scroll up to see our chat from a month ago, our last conversation before today. That was right after Paul and I had argued. I had softened first. He followed by coaxing me. Somehow, Oliver had found out and reached out to check on me. By then, the matter was already settled. So I deliberately acted casual and sent Oliver a message. It's nothing, brother. Next month Paul and I might be getting married. If you have time, come back and attend. That time. Oliver took a long while to reply. Maybe he had fallen asleep when he finally responded. It was only a few short words. Probably won't have time. When I first saw that message, I felt a faint sense of loss. I thought that after going abroad, he had grown more distant. Only now did I realize he never had. Chapter 17. The next afternoon, Oliver came to my house to pick me up. He took me to speak with the family elders about the matter. Hearing this, his parents showed visible discomfort and tried to dissuade us. You're the older brother, emotionally and morally. You really shouldn't. Only the old patriarch, leaning on his cane, let out a long sigh. Jessica is a good girl. Paul's situation with that other young woman has caused an uproar. Everyone knows about it. Are we really going to let her suffer more injustice? My health isn't what it used to be. I'm already halfway into the grave. I'm afraid that when I face her father in the afterlife, he'll reproach me for not protecting his daughter. Dad! Paul's mother frowned and called out sharply, not wanting him to say such inauspicious things. Paul's father looked at Oliver and me, as if wanting to add something more in persuasion. But when his gaze fell on Oliver's face, on everything he had been through over the years, he swallowed his words and only said, we should at least notify Paul, call him back and talk it through. The call was made using my phone. It was hung up repeatedly. The expressions around the room grew darker and darker. Then suddenly, it was answered. On the other end came piercing laughter and lively noise. There was no need to guess. Paul was once again enjoying himself at some gathering. I called out to him, Paul, I have something to talk to you about. His voice came back low, tinged with irritation. Jessica, why are you suddenly calling me by my full name? I ignored the displeasure in his tone and continued, come home for a moment. We need to discuss. Jessica, Paul cut me off. Listen carefully. If you keep interfering with what I do again and again, it'll only make me less willing to marry you. This is the first and only time I'll ever speak to you like this. Don't try to pressure me using anyone else. And don't think that crying at my house means someone will stand up for you. Even if my grandfather comes as a mediator, it won't matter. The next second, the call was ruthlessly cut off. The busy tone rang out sharply in the silent living room. His parents' faces looked awful. After hearing everything, the old patriarch was so furious that he collapsed back into the sofa. After taking several rapid breaths, he stood up again and slammed his cane heavily against the floor. His voice carried an authority that brooked no argument. There's no need to wait for that bastard anymore. Jessica, Oliver, our family accepts your decision. The wedding banquet will proceed as planned. Only the groom will change to Oliver. He turned to look at me. His gaze was gentle, yet filled with guilt. Jessica, you've been wronged. Our family owes you. We owe your father as well. From now on, our family is your family. Oliver will treat you well. As for Paul, enough. I felt inexplicably stunned, my heart in turmoil. At just that moment, Oliver reached out and gently placed his hand over the back of mine. His palm was cool, yet strangely, there was a calming force in it. I lifted my head and met his steady, profound gaze. The storm surging inside my heart finally settled. Just a little. Chapter 18. The news of the groom being changed spread through the entire social circle very quickly. Some mutual friends came to chat about it, but none pressed with endless questions. This kind of situation wasn't common in our circle, but the circle had seen even more extraordinary love and hate entanglements. Something unusual could happen around anyone. So while there was curiosity and surprise, that was all. Only Paul's brothers messaged me, more than one of them, unable to believe I had really done this. I replied to all of them with the same sentence. I saw the messages you sent to Paul. So I reflected on it as well. It's true, Paul and I aren't very compatible. Thank you for the reminder. They awkwardly tried to make small talk afterward, bringing up memories of the past. When my mother learned of the news, she was silent for a long time. I suppose it's acceptable. At least there's an outcome. Since you've chosen Oliver, you should secure things quickly, though his legs are disabled. He still carries weight in the family. Bring up to him as soon as possible. That stalled project of ours. His family needs to inject funds promptly. I nodded silently and didn't argue. Perhaps a distant, hierarchical mother-daughter relationship had always been the best option for us. And then, Paul called me. Jessica, why did you block my account? Are you sulking? Open the door. Coincidentally, I was sitting in the living room when the doorbell rang. I walked to the door and opened it. Paul was standing there. He looked down at me and immediately began questioning me. Why did you change the person you're marrying without saying a word? Everyone already knows. Why am I the last to find out? I took a step back. He reached out and grabbed my arm. His grip startlingly strong. Don't avoid it. Answer me. Is this because you wanted to make me angry? If so, you succeeded. This farce you staged with so many people should be over now. All right. I won't say more. Stop making trouble. Tomorrow I'll take you to see the ring I already ordered. Once again, Paul was planning everything for me. He thought I had merely joined forces with others to put on a performance, just to make him turn back. Chapter 19. I struggled hard and finally broke free from Paul's grip. Looking at him, I stated the facts calmly. When I called you, when I wanted to hold on to you, you got yourself a girlfriend. You said I was disturbing you. You said I made you tired. Now I've stopped tiring you out. What exactly are you dissatisfied with? He sized me up, then laughed in anger. I was just saying that out of spite. I never once thought about actually not marrying you. I took 2 more steps back. Both hands were already gripping the doorknob, ready to shut the door at any moment. But you said it so many times. So many people know you had someone else. I learned to take it seriously. I've already let go. Why are you still unhappy? Paul asked whether he really had to be furious for me to feel satisfied. Several of his credit cards had already been suspended. The old master was so angry that he postponed Paul's entry into the main company for training, and Oliver had entered the main company ahead of him, right in front of me. Paul called that girl. I've transferred $500,000 to your account. Don't contact me again. Delete everything cleanly. On the other end, the girl responded cheerfully with a okay. The call ended. Paul looked at me again, closing in step by step. All right. Now I only have you. Satisfied? Stop arguing with me, okay? The affection in his peach blossom eyes looked the same as ever, but my heart raced, not with longing, but with fear. Truth and falsehood were tangled together. I could no longer tell what his real feelings were, and I didn't need to. I answered him by slamming the door shut. Chapter 20. The moment I returned to my room, a message arrived on my phone. I'll give you time to accept me again. I won't let go. Get some rest early. I didn't reply. Another number was added to my blacklist. There was only 1 week left until the wedding. I went out with Oliver to a designer friend's studio to finalize the wedding dress we had long since ordered. I lifted the snow-white hem of the gown and slowly turned in a circle, looking at myself in the mirror. It felt like a dream, beautiful and unreal. Oliver praised me. I smiled and nodded. Suddenly, applause came from behind me, along with a familiar voice, as expected of the wedding dress Jessica and I chose together back then. It really is beautiful, don't you think, brother? I turned around. Paul had abandoned his usual casual style. He was dressed in a black suit, his hair meticulously styled. He winked at me and smiled. Why didn't you ask me to come with you to see the wedding dress? I answered him indifferently. My fiancé has already accompanied me. I stepped toward Oliver and took his hand. Oliver gently held my hand, glanced at Paul, and reminded him, Paul, from now on you should call Jessica sister-in-law. Don't be so rude. Paul's expression darkened, his face sinking slightly. He strode forward, trying to take my other free hand. I dodged. His hand froze midair. He laughed bitterly and withdrew it. Do you really have to gang up together, just to mess with me? Before I could respond, Oliver spoke first. Paul, you and Jessica are already in the past. Since you chose to let go, you don't get to regret it. Now Jessica and I are together. You should offer your blessing. Paul snorted. I treated you like a brother. And this is how you repay me? How much I liked Jessica, don't you know? If we're talking about hypocrisy, you're not lacking at all. I felt it. Oliver's hand loosened instantly. I didn't miss it. When he looked at me again, there was an unmistakable tension in his eyes. Chapter 21. I didn't ask anything further. I simply placed my hand on Oliver's shoulder, naturally and calmly, and said, I know all of this, but no matter how you look at it, you're the one who went too far, compared to the distant memories I shared with Oliver, and our more recent interactions. My relationship with Paul was far more vivid in my mind. It truly shouldn't end in such an unclear way. Putting an end to the past wasn't difficult. It was just that when the memories resurfaced, love and resentment intertwined, making it unbearably painful. That was all. I was wearing the wedding dress of my dreams, a symbol of happiness, and I honestly told Paul every reason why I no longer wanted to marry him. Oliver and the staff had already withdrawn outside the room. Things had escalated to this point. Yet at the moment when everyone could have drawn swords, we were instead calmly sorting through right and wrong from the past. Paul first asked whether my recounting of these experiences meant he still had a chance to win me back. I didn't answer. When he fell silent, he listened quietly. As he listened, more than once he said in disbelief, I really think that was just a small matter. You could have endured it. I also made concessions. That only shows that after all these years, you still don't truly understand me. I replied evenly. By the time the words reached the end, it felt as though I was slowly cutting away the past. Happiness and pain replayed themselves once more, until we finally arrived at the full stop of love. The air fell silent. After listening, Paul looked at me for a very, very long time, and then said, I actually didn't want us to end up like this. He said that it was true, that he was young and impulsive, wanted to try everything, and didn't want to be tied down. He had done many things wrong, but throughout all of it, he always believed that as long as he turned back, we could continue walking forward together, with our old bond intact. After hearing that, I felt neither moved nor sad. It simply felt like an answer I had rehearsed for so long, had finally settled firmly in my heart. A full stop. Our final exchange was Paul asking me, it's going to be hard for me to stay here. If I were given another chance, would you be willing to go abroad with me? I shook my head. He gave a self-mocking smile and said, Jessica, I'm sorry. Paul left me a card, one he had applied for himself. 2 million, money that was originally meant for us to use after marriage. Chapter 22. From that day on, Oliver kept trying to find a chance to explain things to me, but it wasn't until the night before the wedding that I finally gave him that opportunity, a private conversation. It was also a decision I made. After days of careful thought, he was honest with me when he made that proposal back then. Beyond being allies who each got what they needed, there had also been a bit of personal motive mixed in. I didn't show much resistance. Perhaps my life had already contained one long, deeply unforgettable relationship, but just because it ended didn't mean I had to seal myself off for the rest of my life. There would still be 2 or 3 years after marriage. If, as allies, we could also develop a solid emotional bond, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Oliver was very happy with my response. That night, however, the main focus of our discussion was still how, after marriage, we would operate as a married partnership in our careers. The next morning, as I got up early for makeup and preparations, my mother stood by the door. It wasn't until I noticed her out of the corner of my eye and called out to her that she seemed to snap back to herself and walk over to me. She handed me an agreement. It was a share transfer document from Oliver's family company. After you marry into his family, don't forget to inject capital into the projects our company has put on hold. I took it, Not quite understanding. She added another sentence. This was something your father bought back then. Now it's being transferred to you. At your in-laws' place. It gives you a bit more standing. My mother praised me once. You look very beautiful today. If your father could see you, he would definitely be happy. Before I could respond, she left the lounge, saying she needed to greet the guests. When I finally appeared in full wedding attire, facing the sea of people, and put on that ring, when I began to possess an identity and network, that made things easier to navigate. I knew that, from the very foundation, everything would no longer be the same. Paul, extra. Paul thought that of course he loved Jessica. Otherwise, why would he have rushed to set a wedding date when she talked about giving up on their relationship? Why would he have handed her money whenever she needed it? Why would he have gone all this time without even holding another woman's hand? Didn't that count as love? He didn't understand what more Jessica wanted. But actually, he did understand. It was just that Jessica wanted too much. She wanted love. She wanted marriage. She wanted him, body and soul, to promise her the rest of his life. But he was still so young, only in his 20s. What was wrong with wanting to experience other kinds of love? Those thoughts kept bouncing around in his heart, until one opportunity finally broke through the surface. Taking advantage of this chance, Jessica would give in, right? She should give in. He had already given her so much love. Giving a little to someone else wouldn't change anything. Paul told himself that the person he loved most was still her. That was beyond question. At first, he felt a little guilty, but with someone new by his side, and with Jessica's personality and habits already so familiar, Paul believed that as long as he controlled the balance, everything would work out. Both sides could be satisfied, surely. But as time went on, he realized that being half-hearted truly made it impossible to take care of everything. The more Jessica made a fuss, the more irritated he felt. He remembered how she was when they first met, lively and radiant, with a temper of her own. Arguing and bickering with him, she had been different from all the women who always went along with him. Back then, he had willingly given her everything, had even imagined growing old together, laughing through life. But after so much time together, he was shocked to discover that boredom could still creep in. Jessica's love for him, he wasn't unaware of it. He had even felt happy because of it. But once weariness set in, everything began to feel like shackles. This can't be done. That must be controlled. What difference was there between that and the elders in his family? Just a younger version of the same restraints. He was restraining his desires. He was still placing Jessica first in his heart. No matter how new or exciting the others were, they could never compare to the person who had been by his side for so many years. And yet, Jessica seemed to have changed. She became strange. She stopped disturbing him so often. At first, this kind of change felt good, quiet, peaceful. But after a few days of not responding to him, it started to feel strange. If she loved him, how could she not respond at all? Was she sulking? Well, put that aside for now. If he just coaxed her a little, things would surely get better. They would soon return to how they were before. Paul thought he knew Jessica far too well. He never expected things to change so fast. How had the man by her side suddenly become someone else? And why did it have to be that person? Oliver was truly calculating, hiding for so long, waiting for this opportunity. He must have been waiting for it for a very long time. But Jessica must still love Paul. As long as Paul appeared and she turned back, what would Oliver amount to? Maybe, in the past, Paul and Oliver still had some emotional bond, but Oliver had been abroad for so long, and never replied to any of his messages. As time dragged on, even blood ties diluted by time would inevitably grow distant, let alone emotional closeness. Oliver had originally been nothing more than an online acquaintance. Someone Paul only exchanged holiday greetings with, or asked after from time to time. In real life, he was the gifted prodigy their parents and grandfather always spoke of with regret and pride. And yet, he was also the one who stole Paul's bride-to-be. In a certain moment, Paul suddenly understood why Oliver had gone abroad back then, and Paul finally understood, through Jessica's calm accusations, why she no longer loved him. But Paul still loved her. How could she just stop loving him like that? Yet that time, after listening to Jessica's pain, he no longer had the courage to step forward, pull her into his arms, and wipe away her tears. Only that card remained, silently declaring that he still loved her. A faint thought began to surface in his heart. If everything had gone smoothly back then, if they had gotten engaged smoothly, married smoothly, become a perfect couple as planned, if he had not been driven by wandering desire, would the person standing beside her today have been him instead? Paul had been just a few steps away from entering the wedding venue. But suddenly, he turned around and walked out. He turned off his phone. Paul didn't want to see anyone. He didn't care about anyone's blame. He got into his car and drove along the coast. This was the beach where he and that person had gone on their first date. Driving with the sea breeze. And the person he was thinking of, perhaps she was now smiling, wearing matching rings with someone else. Fingers interlaced. From today onward, and for the rest of his life, there would be no possibility left between them. And finally, he understood. That year, when Oliver left the country without looking back. This was exactly what he must have felt. So painful, and yet so utterly helpless.